On August 11th, 2024, I had a heart attack. In fact, I probably had 3. Some of my well-intentioned friends who might be a little more conspiracy-minded have asked if I thought the Pfizer vaccine, the vaccine I took against COVID, played any role in my heart condition. Were they onto something? Or do they really just need to stop? We're going to talk about it right now.
This is Really Just Stop. Here's Ross, the host with today's dose of common sense.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Just doing audio today. It's Christmas Eve. I have a busy day ahead, so I don't have time to do a video, do all that editing, I don't really do a whole lot of editing. So anyway, you get the idea. I'm kind of pressed for time today. We have a house full of people that's going to be here relatively soon. So I just wanted to cover this topic because it was asked again this morning. And it was probably the 5th, I think, person who's asked me this specific thing. The short answer, if you want the too long didn't read version, is no. The vaccine had absolutely nothing to do with my condition. And here's why. It doesn't do that. It doesn't give people heart attacks. There is a slight link between the vaccine and myocarditis or pericarditis, which is an inflammation type thing that happens around the heart. I didn't have that. But also, the risk of myocarditis and pericarditis are higher just from getting COVID than it is from getting the COVID vaccine. It was a very small percentage of people that affected through the vaccine. But the risk of getting it and suffering from it was higher if you just got COVID. So the general idea and the consensus was that just go ahead and get vaccinated, because if you're going to get myocarditis, your risk of it is higher if you don't get vaccinated and you get COVID. Now, granted, not everybody was going to get COVID either way, but that was the idea. But why am I so sure that it had nothing to do with my condition? Well, my condition existed before COVID came along. I had peripheral artery disease, which is a clogging of the arteries in the lower body, where your peripheral artery comes down from your heart, down through your midsection, goes into your pelvic girdle and separates, and part of it goes down each leg. Well, those arteries were clogging, and they were clogging years ago. I do have a picture if I ever do decide to do a video version of this podcast. There's a CT scan of my lower body, and the femoral artery in my right thigh is completely clogged. You can see the contrast fluid in the CT scan. It comes down, it starts around the hip area, and it comes down, and it stops dead. And then there's about a 2-inch space, and then you can see it again in the femoral artery. But around that blockage, there are arteries and veins that have grown and have bypassed, it created a natural bypass of that blockage in order to continue the blood flow to my lower leg. This doesn't happen overnight. So I had peripheral artery disease, an intervention where they went in and put stents in my lower body. Actually, they installed 5 of them in my lower body in order to open up those arteries in my lower body, because we were having issues with my leg. But all those times over the years, like years and years ago, when I would have pain in my right thigh, that's what was going on. My femoral artery was clogging up, and my lower leg was screaming out for oxygen because it couldn't get any. And over time, my body corrected it. It's still in the process of correcting it. Those arteries still need to get larger, but the more I exercise and the more they get used, the larger they'll get and they'll accommodate more blood flow. And eventually, I may not even be able to notice a difference. I still can. A couple of toes on my right foot will go numb after a lot of exercise. But that didn't happen from the time I got vaccinated until 2 years ago. I think it was like a 6-month period between when I got the vaccine and when we discovered that my femoral artery was completely clogged. But the fact that those veins and arteries have rebuilt a pathway around that blockage is clear evidence that it didn't happen in a 6-month period, that it happened years ago, and my body is still fixing it. So no, I don't believe the Pfizer vaccine had anything to do with my heart condition. And on top of that, cardiac disease, heart disease runs in my family. It's like a common thing in my family. Now, I wasn't always aware of this. I didn't actually become aware of this until after I had a heart attack. I wasn't aware that my uncle had open heart surgery when he was in his 40s. I wasn't aware that both of my grandfathers had heart attacks. I wasn't aware that my grandmother, all of my aunts, the only person in my mother's side of the family who has not had a heart attack is my mother. And so, yeah, no, it wasn't the COVID vaccine that did it to me. It was bad genetics, bad dietary choices probably over a long period of time, and, clogging arteries that had been clogging for decades. And it's just absolutely impossible for it to have been caused by the COVID vaccine. Now, some people have asked, well, maybe it was the final trigger that you needed in order to get there. No. That's just silly talk. My lower body arteries were clogging before COVID. And as a result of that, they were very concerned about the arteries leading into my heart. And so they started trying to look at them and trying to figure out what the blockages were in my heart before I had the heart attack. They did what they call a calcification test, which is another type of CT scan. And I don't know all of the details, but I do know that immediately after that, when it was reviewed, a cardiology office was trying to get in touch with me desperately, apparently. And that was before my heart attack. But I didn't realize who was calling me, and nobody from my doctor's office that I would recognize called me. So I never answered the phone to this unknown phone number. And they never left a message. But it was the cardiologist trying to get in touch with me because they were concerned that I needed an intervention before I had a heart attack. Well, they only called twice. They didn't leave a message. No one else tried to get in touch with me and told me that I needed to talk to these people. And so I wasn't aware of any of it until I was in the hospital having a heart attack. And the nurse comes in and says, "Who's your cardiologist?" And I said, "I don't have a cardiologist." And she's, "What do you mean you don't have a cardiologist?" I'm like, "I don't have a cardiologist. I've never had a heart problem before." And she was like, "Well, that's not what your records say." So anyway, they were concerned about my arteries in my heart before I had the heart attack. I just didn't know it because I guess their office wasn't determined enough to get in touch with me. So they didn't when I didn't answer the phone. But that's the size of it, ladies and gentlemen. COVID and the COVID vaccine did not cause my heart condition. It was there for a very long time before any of those things came around. And I would love to have something to blame it on. I would love to have a cause. I would love to be able to go before Congress and testify and say, something you guys pushed on me and forced me to do is what caused me to nearly die, and you should give me a lot of money. But I can't, because none of that would be true. The only thing that tried to kill me was my bloodline, my my genetics, my ancestors. They're apparently a murderous lot. The only good thing about any of this is that all of my relatives who have had heart trouble and have had heart attacks and even had bypass surgeries and so on and so forth, they all survived it. And they all died of something else long, long after those things happened. So it's kind of encouraging. So I may live, to your dismay, for another 30 years or so. It might be to my dismay too, because I'm probably not going to be in very good shape by then. If this is 57, boy, I don't think I really am looking forward to 77 or 87. Oh boy. Anyhow, that's where we are, and that's the truth of the matter. And that's your New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve? What the hell am I? It's Christmas Eve. I just bypassed Christmas altogether because really, let me be honest with you. We're not actually doing any kind of a Christmas. We're having a family gathering. We're all going to come over and we're going to have a big dinner. We're going to get fat and then probably just take a nap. But all of the kids are grown. There's been a lot going on this year between all of us and all of the family's health issues that we've encountered this year. And we just really didn't feel like it. We didn't decorate. We didn't even put up a tree, which we always do. Sometimes we put up more than one tree. When we had kids around, we would put up sometimes 2 trees. But not this year. We were just happy to get through this year. And we were happy that everyone is currently healthy and alive. And we just really didn't care about those trappings and decorations and all of that. So here's what we did. We have an inflatable Christmas Yoda. And it's almost a middle finger to our neighborhood because we have a lot of neighbors who go all out for Christmas. We have some neighbors who decorate for every single holiday. It's like Arbor Day, and they have their entire yard decorated. Lights, flashing lights, strobes, animatronics, you name it, inflatables, they have it out in their yard. And it's just a thing they do. And they decorate for every holiday, every year. And it's actually amazing because I have to drive right toward their house on my way home. And sometimes it's great. They do a really great job. But there are several houses in our neighborhood that they just go a little overboard, and they make us look bad because we don't even have Christmas lights on our house because, I don't know, I have a 2-story house and the eave is like 40 feet in the air and I don't have a ladder that can even reach them. So I'm not bothering with that. So we put up this inflatable Yoda, and I'm sure we are the embarrassment of the neighborhood, but we don't care. We have other priorities, and decorating the house to impress the neighbors isn't one. So that's it. That's your update for Christmas Eve. I hope everybody has a great Christmas and be safe. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy time with your family if that's what you're doing. Enjoy time away from your family if that's what you're doing. Sometimes people choose to do that, you know. This time of year can be a bit much. There's too many holidays run together. So sometimes you might want to take one off and go to the Bahamas or something instead of having a family gathering for Christmas. I'm envious. I would love to do that. I've never been to the Bahamas. So I don't know, maybe I should do that. Go to the Caribbean. So here's the other controversy and conspiracy. Is it Caribbean or Caribbean? I don't know. We'll have to ask Johnny Depp what he thinks. But until then, everybody, take care of yourselves. Be well. You should hear from me before the new year, but I'm out for now. I've got to go make a turkey.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Really? Just Stop with your host, Ross. Make sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a dose of some common sense.